All right, this question says, which of the following are examples of a chemical change? And a chemical change would be contrasted with a physical change. A chemical change, the buzzwords for chemical change are burning, rusting, and tarnishing. In burning, you're basically taking a hydrocarbon, it doesn't have to be, but generally a hydrocarbon, burning in the presence of oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. You've changed the hydrocarbon, like propane, C3H8, into carbon dioxide and water. You've performed a chemical change. Chemists are very interested in chemical changes, and as you're going to learn, we write them in the form of chemical reactions. So chemical reactions indicate chemical changes. Physical changes are things that don't involve chemistry. So for example, if you are going to take a piece of paper and rip it into smaller pieces, that would be a physical change. The paper's chemical makeup, or cellulose, has not changed, so that's a physical change. What we need to remember is that state changes, although they look like something has changed chemically, it has not. So if we have an example of here of water freezes, if I write this in a chemical reaction-like way, I could write H2O liquid forms H2O solid. In this case, this is going to be a physical change because the H2O is still H2O. We have not changed the chemistry. Ethanol evaporates. This is a slightly more complicated chemical, so I'm not going to bother to write it here. But in this case, you have something going from the liquid state to the gas state. So if you use hand sanitizer, you're evaporating ethanol and it gets cold on your hands, and we'll explain that later in the course. But for right now, this is a physical change because it goes from the liquid state to the gas state. A match burns. Burns is a buzzword for chemical change. A match is not made out of methane, but if we were going to take methane gas and react it with oxygen gas, we would get carbon dioxide and water. The stuff that makes up methane contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, that makes up a match, contains carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, but it still burns in the presence of oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. This is a chemical change. In this specific example, the carbon was bonded to 4 hydrogens, now the carbon is bonded to 2 oxygens. The 4 hydrogens were bonded to a carbon, now the hydrogens are bonded to an oxygen. So this is a chemical change. The arrangement of atoms has changed, and that's the definition of a chemical change. But again, the buzzword is burns, and once again, this is not the chemical formula of the wood in a match, or the paper in a match, depending on what kind of match you have. But it is the similar process that is going on with the match. It's just a much larger molecule. So in this case, burning is a chemical change.